It's Gordon Majak here, back with another episode of Timeless Pop, Rock, and Soul. And in this episode, we are going to wrap up our little three-song set of music from my childhood years, and in particular, those years from, let's say, 1965, 66, 67, 68, that time frame when I would have been between, let's say, 7 and 10 years old. And I already identified two songs that were hugely important to me and remain hugely important to me to this day that date from that time frame. And that was, of course, the Beach Boys' great classic Surfer Girl. And then most recently, the last video there, we did Little Anthony and the Imperials and that classic song Going Out of My Head, which took me right back that time. For this third installment here, it's a little bit of a different take on this concept of purity and innocence and that childhood connection that I made to these songs. And let me tell you what I mean by that. But before I do that, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment below. Management gets mad at me if I don't say that, so I got to put that in there or I'll get fired. Like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll catch up with you guys in the comments. Okay, back to the music. Now, when I think back to that time frame in my childhood, as I mentioned, those years, let's say between 7 and 10, we're talking 65, 66, 67, 68, that time frame. As I mentioned in the other videos, I made a connection with this music that was personal, and I identified that quality as being a quality of innocence. A connection that was based on a certain innocence and a certain purity and a certain naivete, I guess, a little bit of naivete about things, from which is what you get when, in your childhood, right? And I connected with the music because I identified that the innocence and the purity was in the music itself. And of course, as being a young kid who was soaking up those songs, that innocence was in me as well, as when you're 7, 8, 9 years old, right? And so I made that connection because when I hear the songs, they take me right to that time of my life. And because it's reflected in the music, and because the music has endured so many years, all these years later, these songs are such classics, right? When you put it all together, it's like it just makes me think about time in a different way, and how all these years later, the songs have not only stuck with me, but when I hear the songs, and even just when I think of the songs, it takes me to that time in my life when there was still innocence in myself, and I recognized it. There was a degree, to whatever degree, of innocence in the culture still, especially during the time of the Beach Boys song, and then with Little Anthony and the Imperials. There was an innocence in the culture, some innocence left, I guess, and between the personal and the musical and all of that connection just was so strongly made, and it has endured for my entire life with those songs. Well, when this song came out, and this one is from, let me just show you what we're doing here. The Beach Boys was the summer of 63 when I was 5. Little Anthony and the Imperials was late 64, so I would have been 6. But like I said, with both of those songs, they were such big hits and they endured for so many years afterwards that as I aged and the songs aged, that's when I sort of grew into that identification with those songs. Those songs spoke to me later, after, in the years that they were released. But for this one, it's a little bit different. We're jumping up to early 1969 for this one, February of 1969. And this is the great Dennis Yost and Classics 4 doing a song called Traces. Now, unlike the Beach Boys song and the Little Anthony song, this song coming out in 1969, let's ask ourselves how much innocence was left by then. The Beach Boys had come out before JFK was even assassinated there in 1963. And Little Anthony came out, of course, after JFK, but before so much other stuff went wrong in the 60s, right? So by the time we get to 1969 for this song with the Classics 4, we're almost all the way through the decade of the 60s, and it has just been nothing but a freaking tornado from start to finish, right? I mean, the Vietnam War is still dragging on. JFK, Martin Luther King, and Bobby Kennedy are all gone. And it just seems like you add all that up and that cumulative blow to the collective psyche. I'm not sure when we think of the 70s or even the 80s, do we think if there was any innocence left? I don't think so. Not in hindsight. It sure doesn't seem like it. It really seems like if there was any left, it had to be in the 60s before it was completely vanquished. And the thing about this song, though, is that coming out in 1969, this song was such a big hit, and it, of course, endured again, like these other ones, for so many years after. It was sort of an instant classic, right? Like so many of these songs. It was an instant classic because it seemingly spoke to, as you'll hear in the lyrics, the lack of innocence. Okay? It speaks to the bridges being burned and the innocence being used up, right? That's what the song speaks to when it comes out in 1969. And yet, all these years later, even with that, just hearing the song itself somehow still speaks to an innocence of those times. It's like the song is both sides of the same coin at the same time. It's simultaneously bittersweet and sad about the loss of the innocence at the time it comes out, which is accurate. And yet, with the benefit of time, looking back on the song now, it's like there's still an innocence in the music itself and the feeling that it evokes. And I mean, these lyrics, you would never hear lyrics like you'll hear in this song. You'd never hear lyrics like this, these days. I mean, someone would say it was dated in that sense, right? The great Dennis Yost coming up here on vocals. Man, what a voice. Now, the Classics 4 here were on quite a little run there because if you remember, they had their big hit Spooky. There's a classic from 1967. Then in 1968, they had their next big classic, which was Stormy, another just beautiful tune sung by Dennis Yost. Almost went with that one. But this one, Traces here from 1969, just speaks in such an ironic way and in such an oddly connected way to that innocence back then. And like I said, because the song has endured, somehow whatever innocence is in it has endured. And I know that doesn't make any sense, but just listen to these lyrics. You'll get it. From 1969, early 1969, this is the great Dennis Yost on lead vocals and the equally great Classics 4, Traces. Traces of love long ago that didn't work out right. Traces of love with me tonight. I'm just going to pause it for a second there. God, hearing this, I mean, this song, just like Surfer Girl, just like Going Out of My Head, it never went away. It was like a golden oldie almost when it was new, you know? I mean, it just never, these songs were just permanently in the consciousness and permanently on the radio and permanently being played. And I guess in that sense, it's inevitable that people would make, you know, deep personal connections with the music. But when you look at it like I'm doing, you know, over a span of years of my childhood, in that sense, you know, being, like I said, 10 years old when this one came out versus being 5 with the Beach Boys and then only 6 or 7 when Little Anthony came out. That passage of time and that loss of innocence just, God, it's so damn bittersweet. It is just so bittersweet. I was thinking today when I was thinking about this song that, you know, you have to be very careful not to just confuse this with nostalgia. And I'm not at all. It's not nostalgia. It is that innocence. It was so real and genuine when it was there, when we're all younger. And it's equally real and genuine, unfortunately, as it goes away in all the various ways that it goes away and gets taken away and gets lost and everything else. It's just such a profound thing to think about when you're a little kid and hearing these songs, and truly the soundtrack of your life, or of my life in this case. The Classics 4 and Dennis Yost, man, what a singer. And just like I said with Little Anthony and the Purials, you know, you look at their 3 big hit songs there with Tears on My Pillow, Going Out of My Head, and Hurt So Bad. That's a career, right? And same thing here with Dennis Yost and Classic 4, man. They were on a run with Spooky, then Stormy, and then this song. It's quite a little trio of big hits for them there in the 1960s. Great songs, great vocals, total pros, top to bottom. And man, it just, that music captures it. It captures those times, and it captures that vibe, and it takes me right to it. And wow. Different times, folks. Those were different times. We will be back with another video, and we are going to shift gears a little bit here and head in a little different direction. I always like to do these things in these sets of 3 so we can kind of move through these different time frames or different years or different themes or genres or whatever we're doing. And in this case, it was those childhood years in the 60s for me. And in the next one, I'm not sure where we're going to go yet. I think we're going to jump up into the 70s. Oh, when things really got serious. We'll see. I'm not sure yet. Anyway, thank you for watching. As always, on a Saturday afternoon, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment below. And I will see you soon. 3, 2, 1.